If you've ever wondered how people are affording their lifestyles, trust me, you're not the only one. You look around and it seems like everyone is buying beautiful homes, traveling nonstop, and somehow doing it all without looking especially stressed or overworked. On social media, at work, or even within your own friend group, it can feel like everyone else is living on a level that's completely out of reach for you. And that feeling can mess with your head. But here's the part no one really talks about. It's almost never what it looks like from the outside. In fact, the reality is usually the opposite of what we're being shown. And once you understand what's happening behind the scenes, a lot of this starts to make much more sense. Before we break it all down, make sure to like this video and subscribe if you want more content like this. Now let's start with homes, because they're usually the biggest signal people associate with being rich. That new house your friend just bought, the one with the open kitchen, the home office, maybe even a backyard or a pool, it looks expensive, and honestly, it probably is. On paper, it feels like they must be doing incredibly well to afford something like that. But here's the reality. First-time homebuyers often spend 40% or more of their gross income on their mortgage, and that's before taxes. So if someone earns around $80,000 a year, they could easily be paying close to $2,700 a month just for housing, while their actual take-home pay might be closer to $5,300. From the outside, it looks like success. From the inside, it often means a huge chunk of their income is locked into one single expense. When you see a beautiful house, it's easy to assume it's a sign of wealth, but many times it's really a sign of commitment, pressure, and a very tight budget. The lifestyle looks big, but the financial breathing room is usually much smaller than you'd expect. And then we add cars into the picture, because buying a new car is one of the fastest ways to make a lifestyle look far more luxurious than it actually is. According to Edmunds, 20% of all new cars now have monthly payments over $1,000, and an astonishing 85% of new cars are financed. Even more broadly, about 40% of people currently have a car payment. Think about that friend who just showed up with a shiny new SUV. From the outside, it looks like a clear sign of wealth. But for a lot of buyers, that single payment is eating up a serious portion of their income. A $1,000 car payment alone is more than 20% of the income for someone making $60,000 a year. And that's before insurance, gas, maintenance, or repairs. When you look at it that way, the picture shifts. The polished, effortless look of someone driving a nice car starts to make more sense when you realize how much of their monthly budget is being allocated to it. It's not always about having more money. Very often, it's about where the money is going. Now let's zoom out and talk about income itself, because this part is where a lot of assumptions fall apart. According to the BLS, the median income for a full-time worker is just over $60,000 per year. That's before taxes, health insurance, and other deductions. On paper, it sounds solid. In reality, once you subtract housing, transportation, and basic living costs, it doesn't stretch nearly as far as people imagine. Most lifestyles that look extravagant are not funded by massive earnings. They're powered by very intentional and often very tight allocation of limited resources. And then there's net worth, which tells a very different story than what we usually see online. According to the Federal Reserve, the median net worth for people under 35 is $39,000. For those between 35 and 44, it rises to $135,000. And for ages 45 to 54, it's $247,000. Even at $247,000, that doesn't automatically mean financial freedom. That number can easily be tied up in home equity, a retirement account, or a small investment portfolio. When you compare these realities to the lifestyles we see on social media or even among people we know, it becomes clear that what we're seeing is often just the surface, not the full financial picture underneath. And it's not just income and net worth that explain this gap between appearance and reality. A surprisingly large number of young adults are living with family. According to the Census Bureau, about 1/3 of adults aged 18 to 34 live with their parents. Living with family can easily create the impression of financial independence because it dramatically reduces expenses like rent, groceries, and utilities. When those costs disappear or shrink, it suddenly looks like someone has a lot more disposable income. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. In many cultures around the world, multi-generational living is completely normal and even expected. When it's arranged in a healthy, mutually supportive way, living with family can actually be a very smart financial decision for everyone involved. It can explain why someone seems to have extra money to travel, invest, or spend in ways that look impressive from the outside, even if their income alone wouldn't normally support that lifestyle. Now let's talk about investing, because this is another area where perception and reality often don't match. About 62% of U.S. adults have money invested in the stock market through individual stocks, mutual funds, or retirement accounts like 401s. peques, or IRAs. That sounds like a lot at first glance. More than half the country is technically invested. But here's the other side of that number. 38% of U.S. adults have no money in the stock market at all. They might have cash savings, they might own a home, or they might rely on other assets, but they're not participating in the long-term growth potential of stocks. And even among the 62% who are invested, many have relatively modest portfolios. A lot of people take a single step into investing and then stop. Maybe they opened a Roth IRA once. Maybe they bought a popular stock during a hype cycle and never added more. Participation doesn't always mean consistency or significant growth. So investing alone isn't the secret behind everyone's seemingly wealthy lifestyle. And then there's a factor people rarely talk about openly: family support. Many lifestyles that appear completely self-made are quietly supported behind the scenes. According to a recent survey by savings.com, 50% of parents with adult children are regularly providing financial assistance to at least one of them. That's half of all parents helping their adult kids financially. The average support comes out to nearly $1,500 per month per child. That money might go toward rent, groceries, student loan payments, or even discretionary spending. What's especially striking is that about half of those parents report sacrificing their own financial security in order to provide that help. In other cases, support shows up in less visible ways: a paid-for college education, graduating without student debt, help with a down payment. These advantages don't always show up in a bio or a caption, but they create a much stronger starting position. So when you see someone posting vacation photos, driving a new car, or living in a beautiful apartment, it may look like they're doing it entirely on their own. But very often, part of that lifestyle is subsidized in ways you can't see. That invisible support creates the illusion of wealth, even when the income alone wouldn't sustain it. And this isn't about minimizing anyone's effort or success. It's about understanding that most financial stories are more complex than they appear, and that comparison without context is almost always misleading. Plenty of people are genuinely doing well. Some are building wealth through high incomes, smart investments, or successful businesses. And yes, some people do come from wealthy families who want to help their kids live comfortably. That absolutely exists. But the important thing to understand is that there are fewer of these cases than it appears. Social media, selective sharing, and all the factors we've talked about amplify visibility, making financial success feel far more common and effortless than it actually is. Most lifestyles that look easy from the outside are often supported by a mix of advantages, debt, overspending, and underlying money stress. Not everyone, of course, but far more people than we realize. At the same time, many of us are much harder on ourselves than we should be. Maybe you've managed to save for a down payment while also paying off credit cards, covering everyday expenses, and keeping up with work. Maybe you maxed out your Roth IRA this year. Maybe you simply resisted the pressure to buy a new car with a $1,000 monthly payment. From the outside, those things might not look impressive, but in reality, they're signs of discipline, patience, and long-term thinking. These quiet wins rarely get attention. They don't show up in highlight reels or viral posts, but they're exactly the kind of steady progress that builds real, lasting wealth over time. And that's why it can feel like everyone else is thriving while you're just barely keeping up. As humans, we naturally focus on highlights, especially when they belong to other people. Social media takes that tendency and turns it up to maximum volume. A perfectly curated post might show a spotless kitchen, a new car, and a tropical vacation. What it never shows are the months of overtime, the budgeting conversations, the stress over bills, or the compromises made behind the scenes. Everyone is making trade-offs. Some people work longer hours or juggle side gigs to afford their lifestyle. Others delay saving for retirement to spend more now. Some rely on help from parents or partners while navigating their own financial challenges. Understanding this isn't about judging anyone. It's about giving yourself perspective. It helps you make better decisions for your own life and recognize your progress for what it truly is. Motivation plays a huge role in building wealth. And if you're constantly comparing yourself to curated versions of other people's lives while minimizing your own achievements, it's easy to feel discouraged or burned out. So remember, when you look at friends, family, or coworkers and feel like you're falling behind, you're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. The rest, the stress, the trade-offs, and the sacrifices, usually stays hidden.